Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Your Daily Writing Habit. Today on the show to talk about the old top of mind adage that a lot of us have heard in business over the years, how it's evolved into a much more authentic and successful method is Grant Muller. Grant is one of my amazing book coaching clients, and he is the author of the new book, Top of Heart. Cleverly behind his shoulder right there. How a new approach to business saved my life and could save yours too. Here's a little bit more about Grant. Grant Muller is a certified high-performance coach and realtor on a mission to help high achievers who have tried every tool and tactic to sell more, achieve more, and find more fulfillment, but aren't quite making the progress they desire. In his book, Top of Heart, Grant shares his story of becoming a millionaire before 30, followed by a downward spiral that caused him to lose everything. By finding the humility to ask for help and the courage to get real, Grant moved past addiction and homelessness and built a remarkable real estate career as a consistent seven-figure earner. Grant knows what it takes to sell, and it all starts with a heart-centered approach. He volunteers on the board of One Colorado to ensure that all of us have a seat at the table. Welcome, Grant.
Thank you, Christine. It's great to be here.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. It is sunny in Denver. It has been raining day after day after day here, so we're loving the sunshine and the blue skies.
That's awesome. So, in addition to being a published author, tell us about the rest of who you are, personally and professionally. Well, so who is Grant Muller today? And we'll cover yesterday in the next question. So, who is Grant Muller today?
I was going to say that's a loaded question.
Yeah,
So
yesterday is next.
I am a speaker, author, very soon, coach. I'm a high performance coach. I coach realtors in a mastermind group setting, as well as people from all walks of life, one-on-one.
Awesome. And I just had a thought and went right away. That's all right. This is a very real interview show, as we do in Your Daily Writing Habit.
I like it
So
that way. I like real.
Right, we're very real. So, all right, now on to yesterday. Like you said, the loaded question. Since your book is a business book, but it's rooted in your powerful personal memoir, can you even attempt to summarize the highlights and lowlights of your personal story?
If you've got 4 or 5 hours, we can go through the run.
Well, we know
So,
the art of brevity from coaching.
exactly. So very simply, I moved up in the corporate world very quickly in my early 20s. And by the time I hit my 20s, I should say, I was drinking like an alcoholic, but I was quote unquote high functioning. And I moved up in the corporate world, and I was recruited to an internet startup this was the late 90s. It was a tech startup. And this was before Google and all of that. I took a big pay cut. We got a bunch of stock options. We went public. We all got rich. Porsches and Ferraris started showing up in the parking lots. I had a foosball table in my office. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner was catered. It was incredible, just amazing, except I was miserable. I had pretended to be someone I wasn't to get there. And I had set aside drinking and alcoholism in favor of workaholism. I was enjoying those fun side effects of workaholism, such as more money, higher social status, etc. But I remember the day that we went public. That night, I was in my fancy condo overlooking the bright lights of Denver. And I remember thinking, is this it? Is this all there is? And I was miserable. And I realized that money that I had hoped would somehow fill this hole in my heart wasn't working. And very soon after that, I met cocaine for the very first time and fell immediately in love. And within a few months, I was fired from that job. A few months after that, I ended up forfeiting all of the stock options. It's a long story. You'll have to read the book. And I lost all of my fortune in one day. And within 6 months or so, I was homeless. And so my addiction, my addiction just took hold and didn't let me go. And my addiction got worse and worse and worse. And luckily, after several years in that situation, I ended up getting clean and sober February 20th, 2008. And I haven't looked back ever since. I got a job at the front desk of a real estate office. And the rest, as they say, is history that has now been documented in a book.
So clever and smart of you to do that. I wonder who gave you that idea.
I could never imagine. Yeah. I came up with it all on my own. Yeah.
And just,
No help.
yeah. And just to clarify it, because when we're recording this, the book isn't out, but as of when everybody is watching this video and listening to this podcast right now, the book is out. It's on Amazon. It's available. And it's probably a bestseller by now. I'm just looking into the future in my crystal ball, and I'm just predicting. I mean, you're already a bestseller in pre-sales, so I'm sure that week it's just going to really blow up.
Yeah, we shall see. Hopefully, hopefully it does well. The most important thing to me is that the book reaches people who need it, either from a personal perspective. If someone has a friend, a relative, son or daughter, or themselves are struggling with drug dependency, substance use disorder, hopefully they come across this book, because believe me, if you read my story, you will understand that if I can, just about anyone can overcome addiction. And then on the business side, if you're in sales, whether it's real estate, insurance, financial advisors, or you're a leader who wants to connect more deeply with the people that follow you, then hopefully you read and enjoy the Top of Heart Worldview, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit. And so my biggest wish for this book is that this book ends up in those hands that need it the most. And we'll let the bestseller stuff work itself out if it makes sense.
Yeah. And I say that tongue in cheek because I'm the queen of why.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I talk about this on the show a lot, and I talk about to my clients a lot. And that's such a powerful and sincere and just incredibly strong personal why. And I love that. And those are the book. And that's, for everybody listening, because people are listening to the show trying to figure out how to do this with their own books. That book you see, those of you watching this on video, that over Grant's shoulder, that exists because that why powered him through the whole, as all of you know as authors, the book writing process, which, as we know, has ups and downs. I'll talk about highlights and lowlights. And when you have that strong why, I mean, let's just, improvise a little bit here. So how did your strong why, did that help you in times when you were, how many times were you about to kind of give up on the whole process, and, the power of why?
Absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is when we worked on my book Blueprint, I was, by the way, in this same office building when we had our first conference call, and I shared with you 1,497 different book ideas with you. And you helped us within about 30 minutes get to one book idea. And very soon I had a 30-page book blueprint. So on the help side, it really helped me understand where I was going, because with each chapter, I knew roughly what I would write about. And of course, we made changes as we went. The thing about writing about the trauma of homelessness and addiction and other traumas is that as I was writing these chapters, I had terrible nightmares. I was triggered in many ways, good and bad. It was an emotionally tumultuous writing experience. Mm-hmm. So there were months where I drifted away from the day-to-day writing. And Christine, the book is available now and completed because you always reminded me to stay connected to the book, as you said, and to stay connected to my why, to be reminded about why I believe this message is important for the world. And because you helped remind me to stay connected, I did stay connected. And once in a while, you even had to kind of pull me back in a little bit.
That's what I do.
But I had that why, and I lost the direction with that why several times. But you were the truth teller and the keeper of the why sometimes for me, which is why, by the way, I love having coaches, right? That's why coaching is so valuable, because you held space for what I had already expressed to you was in my heart. But it's so easy for us to lose sight of that as we go. So anyway, thank you very much for that.
Yeah. Of course. And coaches love coaches. I can't, so many of my coaching clients are coaches because we get it. So that's such a great point. And that's such a great story explaining the why. And I really love that you just shared that, because I just feel like I'm a broken record sometimes on the show here, just saying, why, know your why, connect with your why. And you just attach a real life story to it. So that just makes it so much more impactful than me just kind of jabbering on about that word over and over again. Thank you.
Sure.
So you mentioned the business aspect of the book. So how did your personal story inspire the business model that you introduce in your book of the same name, Top of Heart?
When I was getting clean and sober in rehab, and then in the early days of 12-step meetings, I was showing up with the intention of figuring out, how do I learn to use drugs like a gentleman? How
Fancy.
do I find some control over my meth usage, for instance? And so I went to meetings and I only showed up emotionally halfway. And I shared about how cool I was, how much I sold in drugs, how we were great at stealing cars, allegedly, things like that. What we call in 12-step recovery, junkie pride. So pride in those, how bad was I? But I wasn't showing up emotionally, and I wasn't showing up as I really was. And I came to a place in recovery, a little bit of a fork in the road, where I had to decide, look, if I'm going to stay clean, which means staying off the streets, staying out of prison, I'm going to have to really bare my soul here and show up as I really am in this meeting. And so in the meetings, in one particular meeting, I let it all out. And I was honest and said, look, I'm desperate. I'm terrified. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I want to stay clean really badly, and I need help. And from that moment on, I became a member of the group. I belonged for one of the first times in my life in a real way. And I didn't just belong in the group, but I belonged with myself. While I was going to these recovery meetings at night, I was working at the front desk of a real estate office during the day, studying for my real estate license, embarking on this real estate career. And I learned about this thing called top of mind. And top of mind, by the way, is something that I completely advocate. And that is that people want to work with people they know, they like, and they trust. And so we learned to build these know, like, and trust relationships. But unfortunately, we were learning some tools and tactics for how to build those relationships that didn't feel real. They felt super inauthentic. And I was being asked to memorize scripts and say things that just didn't feel like me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've finally gotten real for the first time in my life. And now I'm learning I'm going to have to fake it and pretend to be someone I'm not to make it in this business. And you have to remember, at this time, I was completely unemployable. So this was it. Do or die. This is how I was going to make it. And I was crushed. And I banged my head against that top of mind wall for a long time, and finally realized, oh, wait, when I have real, genuine connections with people, that's when they send me referrals. Maybe top of mind is good, but maybe it's not enough. What's next? And that's where I started to unconsciously discover what I later called top of heart.
So brilliant. And what I love about it is, and as you just said, you're not against top of mind or anything like that. You're just advancing it to a new level, that's kind of what business authors and thought leaders, that's what you guys do. You advance existing ideas to new levels. And that's what's really just so incredible about the book. And of course, how you tie it to your personal story. So, how it could be a business memoir at the same time without it being like, I'm going to tell my story. Now I'm going to completely talk about something else as a business model. They really they interweave together so nicely.
Absolutely. And as we say in Top of Heart, which is mindset, skill set, and heart set, the mindset is about not what we need to be doing, but who we should become, who we need to become. So it's about connecting authentically person to person. And to connect in that way, we have to get real with who we are for ourselves and then share that with others. So
Identity. That's such an important concept, because the theme of the show is habits, and James Clear talks about that in Atomic Habits, where every time you do something, it's a vote in favor of the person you want to become. It's not, he could have just said it's a vote in favor of locking in this habit, but he took it bigger and said it's a vote in favor of the person you want to become, your new identity as a person who does this particular thing every day. And that's why it's so powerful. Yeah. So your top of heart, as you call it, top of heart worldview, which I love that phrase. Why is that so important in business today?
Well, it's incredible how relevant this topic is. I believe the relevancy it's become more and more relevant as I've written the book, because the AI has become a bigger and bigger thing. And they're saying that roughly 65%, for instance, of all sales functions are becoming replaced by AI. And that means that the thing that we do really well as human beings, which is to create genuine, emotional, true connections with other human beings, is going to be very soon almost all we have left in that process. Now, maybe one day AI will do that better as well, but I believe we've got a little bit of time until then. So for now, I think we're pretty set. And so top of heart becomes more and more important. Let me give you a very real life example. I have I can't go into too much detail, but what I will say is I have incredible technology that tells me which homes are most likely to sell in the next 12 months. And it's built on millions of pieces of data out in the world that is collected about every consumer. And I get to know, wow, this home is much more likely to sell. And so I can reach out to those people based on that AI. So the AI is an incredible piece of the support. Mm-hmm. But until that person is speaking to a human being that they know they can genuinely trust, and that understands, for instance, that this is the home that their children grew up in, and what's involved in the emotional connection of selling the home where their children grew up and just left to go to college. Until that happens, AI can't do the whole piece. It has to be the human piece as well. So that's just one very small example how AI is taking over the business world, but it can't complete the circuit. And that's where the human piece is just so critical.
And that's such an important point, because I've seen, it seems like some people are already kind of like giving up a little bit and saying, oh, well, AI is here, we're all going to hell in a handbasket. Just going to hand my whole business over to them. And it's just like, no, you don't need to give up. No, there's no robots roaming the earth. There's no reason to especially give up the humanity. I mean, I think, let's just hold on to that forever. So this idea of just kind of like handing everything over to AI, just kind of assuming that, this is the inevitable and we might as well jump on the train. I know you and I talked about that on LinkedIn a little bit, where we've seen a little bit of that with some business owners.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say, if you are very mediocre, if you're super mediocre and that's your goal, I think you should be a little worried about AI coming for you. Let's use a copywriter for an example. If you're a copywriter that writes copywritten emails and they are super mediocre, you're in trouble, because I can do it on ChatGPT right now. If you are an imaginative, talented, expert, and most importantly, human, emotional copywriter, AI can't come for you, at least not anytime really soon.
Yeah. It's putting sentences and it's all predictive. As we know, the algorithms of AI, they're all predictive. So they're just putting sentences together based on what they think the next sentence should look like. They're not, feeling into the, to the soul of the human that they're writing for. And we could just go into a whole ghostwriting conversation here, but that's such a good point. Yeah. It's, the middle part, find your humanity, and top of heart can really help. I just occurred to me kind of like, the people, we don't want anybody to just be like, hey, I'm mediocre, because nobody knows that. But sure, if you are concerned at all that, you're in business and that AI might be, coming for you to replace you or whatever, top of heart is a really great way to up level yourself immediately. It seems like to me.
Well, and then that's why in top of heart, there's mindset, skill set, and heart set. So mindset is all about getting real, creating human connections, looking for the human in front of us. The skill set is all about building excellence. And it's not just to counter AI, but it's just because it doesn't matter. We all know business well enough to know, and life well enough to know that, let's go back to real estate as an easy example. If my next door neighbor absolutely adores me, but they also see that I fail at the skill set of actually selling homes well, they're not going to hire me. It doesn't matter what human connection I have with them. So all things being equal, people will do business with those they know, like, and trust. But all things being equal is a key. So we've got to make sure that on the skill set piece of top of heart, we make sure things are unfair. We want to have an unfair advantage, and that's
Mhm.
skill set. And then hard set is about creating that moment from me to we. So
Mhm.
creating that place where we're simpatico, where
Yeah.
we're connected, and our relationship becomes bigger than either one of us. And as you know, working in partnership with me on this book, we certainly, I can't write a book. We can. I can't, we can. I can't
And I
stay,
can't write top of heart.
right. I can't stay clean. We can.
Mhm.
So, and that's stolen from my recovery lessons as well. But Heart Set is all about just showing up as we really are and allowing the emotion of the moment to be there. And I'll give you an example. When I'm at lunch with somebody, they might be having an emotional moment. They might tell me, it could be very different to say, hey, Tommy moved out of the house and he's off to college. That's one message I might get. The other message I might get is Tommy's moved out of the house and he's gone to college. And in that moment, sitting face to face, I might just maybe not even consciously see, but understand that there's a slight glistening in the eyes.
Mhm.
It's just that little bit of emotion. And we lost a lot of that during the pandemic. We lose a lot of that in this connection we have here. This is more than phone,
Mhm.
but as my eyes get teary, you might miss it because we're on Zoom. So
Yeah.
Top of Heart and Heart Set is all about finding that emotion. Now, of course, it doesn't just come from the glistening in the eyes. It might come from the way I said something, etc.
Mhm.
And we are wired to understand that and feel that. We already have those abilities.
Yeah.
But sometimes we close them down in the interest of being the important business person. And so when we can allow ourselves to show up as we really are, then we create that heart set. Now the next door neighbor has an incredible connection with me on many levels, and they happen to know I have the skill set. And now I don't have any competition
Yeah.
because we have a different relationship.
I think that the message there is don't automate your humanity.
I love that. Don't do what's scalable. Do
Mhm.
the unscalable things.
That's nice.
Yeah.
This is great. This book is so valuable. Obviously, I'm biased. Everybody listening to this and watching this knows I'm biased, but it's still really good. All right. Given the theme of the show, habits, what are your best, or you can choose one if you want, your best success habits, writing or otherwise?
My number one best success habit is that I do not have a traditional morning routine. So my morning routine is very simple. One, coffee. Two, and grab the coffee. Go to the desk. Not have coffee, just grab it, go to the desk. Two, dog gets on my lap. I make up a song to the dog. We sing. It's a 20, 30-second thing. He hops off my lap. And then I do the most important needle moving activity for my business. And it's pre-planned in advance. And I spend that first hour to hour and a half working on whatever's most important. And by the way, nobody calls me from 5:30 to 6:30 or 7. I
Shocking.
don't get any phone calls then. I get very few emails. No looking at emails, no looking at social media. I just get to work on the business of the day. For many, many, many months, that was writing my book. This book was written from 5:30 to 7 in the morning. And that's the time that I had. No working out, no meditation, no hot yoga, just get the darn thing that has to get done. And what's been amazing about building the book writing habit is now that I'm not writing a book, that time has moved my business and life forward in other ways that have been unbelievable. So
Shocking.
that's really incredible. Now, by the way, after I do that, I do the meditation, I do the workout, I do the other things. But the needle moving activity happens first time. And I can't think of the gentleman's name. It's not my original idea. So if it comes to me, I'll give him credit. But it's been game changer for me.
So no getting in a cryo chamber. No, okay, all the different things
Yep.
that people do at 5
No
a.m.
cold,
I don't.
no cold plunges. Yeah, no affirmations, none of that stuff. So I do think that's all that stuff's great. But it's the other thing I would say, and I work on with all my coaching clients is that's what works for me.
Mhm.
but the goal is for us to all experiment to figure out what works for them. Some people like to write in the afternoons, right? I mean, I'm just not. That's not going to happen for me ever. It's just not that early morning time is when it's going to happen for me. So, it took me 2 years to figure that out. So I think this would have been a 1.5-year process instead of a 3-year process. I think the next book, especially being less emotionally loaded, I think the next book we'll do in a 12 to 18 month period. And
and that the habit setting. I mean, and this is something that I work with because, mainly working with first-time authors is so much of the habit setting, and it's a process and it requires a lot of like extreme patience. And it always goes slower. Everybody, oh, I'm just going to write my book in the next few months. And I just smile and nod and say, that's nice. Let's talk about your habits.
Yeah. Yes. Because there is no magical moment when, your calendar opens up and you've suddenly got 3 months of writing time. And the truth for me is that it doesn't matter how much free time I have. I'm good for 1,500 words a day. And that's maximum if I'm just really on a roll. That's all you're going to get from me. That's all I'm capable of. I lose interest. I lose my way. I get circular. So, and realistically, 500 to 1,000 is right at my sweet spot. And that's a lot, right? But that's just getting in a good rhythm. So some people certainly are marathon runners, and they could probably sit down for 8 hours and write. I'm not that person. You get 30, 45 minutes of my actual work. And the other one real quick thing that I learned from you that I want to share with anybody who hasn't heard this from you, I think my most productive writing time was when I was not writing. It was when I was out there and not thinking either, just being and allowing what was in my head to ruminate a little bit. I think those were my most creative times.
Yeah. There's a whole factory of stuff in your head that's working, even when you're not in front of the screen. We could just talk about habits all day because we're both total habit nerds.
Yes.
So where is the best place for people to learn more about you and your book, Grant, and to contact you?
I've made it very simple. It's grantmuller.com, GRANTMULLER.com.
It's very simple. Good. I'll make sure I put that in the show notes. And thank you so much for being on the show today. Long time in coming. I've been so excited about this, the whole book. I'm just like, can't wait to have you on the show someday, Grant.
It's such a joy. It's such an honor. And this feels like a graduation of sorts.
It does.
Being on the show with you, talking about my published book. So I appreciate you very much.
It does. I appreciate you. And thanks everyone for listening.